Alrighty, welcome everybody to the last session of the QGIS Open Day. Thanks for making it this far. I am expecting much better lighting in the next 15 minutes when our power comes back, but I'm excited to introduce our next session. It's going to be fantastic. Alan and Katerina are going to take us through connecting your designs across GIS, CAD and BIM. And it's all about easy interoperability using the Speckle plugin for QGIS. So I'd just like to hand over to you guys, introduce yourselves and have at it.
Cool. Well, Katerina, if you want to go first.
Well, I can just say, hi, I'm Katerina. I am an urban planner by my background, and I'm taking part into digitalization of the industry. With Alan together, we are working on this little part of Speckle, which is a QGIS connector, which we're going to present today.
Oh, nice. Well, I guess it's my turn. Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Rin. I'm a software developer at Speckle. As Katerina has said, I'm co-authoring with her the QGIS connector and some of the other GIS explorations that we're doing. But I'm also in charge of the Grasshopper and Dynamo connectors and some of the geometry conversions. So I'm a little bit all over the place in Speckle. That being said, I'll leave Katerina to get the ball rolling. Katerina, you there?
Yes. So you can switch the slide, and this basically is a short intro into what we are aiming at. This is a part of the project we submitted to me and my team in collaboration with Digital Blue Phone for a Triennale competition, and the project that we assembled together in the visual way was using the Speckle connectors for QGIS, for Grasshopper, and the Speckle 3D viewer, which allowed us to collect all the data we had in the table format, in the graphic format from CAD or GIS format, and so on, and present it visually and informatively. And basically, in this session, we're going to walk you through an overview of what Speckle infrastructure is and which cases you might want to use it. And we're going to also show a short demo of how to use it between QGIS and CAD and BIM softwares to produce the result that you want.
Cool. Thank you, Katerina. So we're going to start a little bit with explaining what is Speckle and what is a little bit of our mission and our goals, so you can understand a little bit of the context on the area that we're trying to cover. So we'll just go over what are we, a little bit of the core concepts, why Speckle exists, walk through a couple of example workflows, and then we will go to the main part of the presentation, which is the Speckle QGIS demo, where Katerina will take over and show you most of the QGIS side of Speckle. And then finally, if we do have questions, which I'm not sure if this is doable here, we'll be happy to take them. So starting by the first question, what is Speckle? So Speckle is a collaboration platform that allows you to send and receive data from multiple applications. And also on top of that, it allows you to receive notifications and real-time changes across different teams and disciplines. Apart from the collaboration, it also is a versioning platform, meaning that everything that you send to Speckle is kept unchanged, and we keep track of the changes as the history of your project advances, so you can always go back to previous versions and iterate different and have different versions of your same designs available. Furthermore, it is an automation into Speckle, be it building or geometry or just raw Excel, and have automated workflows running on this real-time notifications. So every time somebody sends something, you can kind of build automation routines, allow you to extract more value out of your data and your daily work. So Speckle is divided like in a very global way into 3 parts. The Speckle web is basically the part that you interface through the web, obviously, and it's where you can access your streams, which is a kind of like a Speckle lingo for a box where you can put data into and view your project information, add collaborators, restrict access, share your models, etc. And then we have the app connectors, which are each specific application that each specific plugin that works on a specific application. So we would have for Rhino a connector for Rhino. Grasshopper has its own connector. So every application that we connect has this app connector plugin that takes care of interfacing with the Speckle web and kind of like grabbing and sending the data to and from. And we have also a developer platform providing some SDKs and APIs and documentation for the more advanced users out there to customize the way Speckle works and to build applications that consume Speckle data. So just like a quick sneak peek of what the Speckle web looks like. It's just like a collection of activities that happen in your profile and places, streams, we call them, where you can have models sent to and shared with other people. We have our connectors, which are managed through our Speckle Manager application, where you can install them and uninstall them. And we regularly keep them updated with new features and bug fixes. And our developer platform, as I said, is all the code side of all of these nice features that we expose to the users. So that was the what is Speckle in a very kind of general way. And I'll walk you through a little bit of the core concepts of what makes the Speckle experience, which is basically what we aim is at connecting your data. So you could start modeling in one application and share that model to any of the other applications that we support, with kind of adapting as much as possible to the target application that you're aiming for, so that the result is as native as possible. So if you send like a Rhino block to AutoCAD, it will be converted into an AutoCAD block. And if you send a Rhino block to SketchUp, it will be converted into a SketchUp block. So we try and keep like things as native as possible as they bounce around between all of these applications. And this kind of requires for some user to send some data to Speckle and interact with Speckle by like creating some new data. And every time you create a new data, we call that a commit, which is a terminology that we took from software development. But it's basically, you can understand it as a snapshot of the current state of your model, or the current state of the part of your model, or the selection of your model that you were sending. And that snapshot will be like persistent and unchanged always, unless you purposefully delete it. And once the data is sent in Speckle, you can use Speckle Web to visualize it and share it with other users, but also view the activity of that specific data. So who sent it, but also who has received it, and what has happened to the data in between. And finally, once the data is in Speckle, other users can consume it in their different applications by requesting that commit that we created previously. We also have a way to always keep like the latest version, so you don't have to worry about if something was updated or not. You can just kind of like rely on always having the most updated data. And that's basically it for the core concepts of Speckle. We try to keep it simple. There's like more behind it, and we will share some links to where you can learn more about this and more detail, like a more detailed overview of all of these core concepts. But let's walk to the why Speckle and why does Speckle exist. So Speckle was created or like thought of in 2015 by Dimitrie, our founder, as a publicly funded PhD. So we are academic in origin, which is why we are basically an open source company with that we provide all of our technology basically for free to everyone. And the main reason for its existence is that we, specifically in our industry, in the building industry, which is where we come from, it's a very fragmented industry where every kind of like modeling paradigm doesn't talk well with every other else. So it's everything is very isolated into its own bubble. And the idea was to create something that would break that bubble and kind of allow you to share that data seamlessly or as seamlessly as possible. But also because we are integrated platform, so we're not only a place where you can send and receive data, but we're also a place that you can view that data online and version that data. You can also control who has access to it, get notifications, and review, add comments to different models or objects in that model. And kind of like there's like a full vertical integrated set of features that we're providing that were not currently in offering when we started. And also because we act like as a central database or a single database for all of the connectors that we serve. So if you use Speckle, you will benefit not only for the connectors that are currently existing, but from the future connectors that we are planning on creating, and any connector that the community creates, which we already have quite a few community contributed ones. So it's like an ecosystem that will continue to grow. So as soon as you're in, you will continue to get benefits from that. We've been growing organically since 2015. In 2018, in 2020, Dimitri started the company, and this team chart is already outdated because we're currently, if my count is correct, 15 team members. But our community grows even faster, and we invite you all to join us. We will share the link in a future slide. So just as a quick example of what things can you do with Speckle other than just like sending and receiving your data, we added a couple of example workflows that we or others have created with Speckle that have enabled some interesting solutions. One of them was a one-day hackathon that we created inside our company, where all of our employees kind of tried to come up with an idea, group in teams, and make it happen as much as possible. So we decided to do an automated carbon reporting tool, which basically the way it worked is that if you send a new commit from Revit with a building, we will get a notification that a new building has been sent, or a new version of that building has been sent. And our application will start a new process in the background, create a new carbon calculation based on the materials and the elements that exist in that building, and create this neat report for you, but also notify you on Discord that your report was ready to be viewed. So it's like adding functionality and adding reducing the friction between your building data and the actual uses that you want to make of it outside of your modeling environment. And another interesting use case that it's actually many different use cases, I'm just showing one of them here, is the results of a course that we did at IAC regarding collaborative workflows, where the students had to collaborate in small groups of 5, and then all of the teams had to collaborate together in a kind of like a big team of 30, 40 something students. and each of them had to kind of invent their own workflow using Speckle and other tools to bridge the gap between the different roles in the project, the different necessities, and the different tasks that they were assigned to. So it was quite interesting, and there was quite some insightful results for that. And finally, and then I will let Katerina go with the interesting stuff. You can always find us at speckle.systems. This is more of our corporate website, but you can find also tutorials and other interesting links there. If you're looking for more like in-depth tutorials about how to do developer stuff, you can always find us at speckle.guide for the developer things /dev. If you're more of a user, just speckle.guide would do. And if you want to join us on our forum to praise us, complain about us, or tell us what you'd like from us in the future, you can always find us at speckle.community. And with that said, it is demo time. So I'll leave Katerina to it. I think I'm going to stop sharing. Give me 1 sec.
All right, so I'm going to start sharing at this point. I don't know if any of you was ready to follow along with the process, but I will basically walk you through how do you start working with Speckle when you installed it and created an account to the moment of exchanging the data, and we will make like a mock exchange of data with Alan. No, actually not a mock, a real exchange of data live. So
hopefully a real exchange. Let's see if we don't have to break it.
Live demos,
technical issues. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst, but we're gonna go for it. So one of the open servers that you can use for Speckle if you don't install your own is speckle.xyz, where you can create an account. You will be also prompted to install the desktop Speckle Manager application. You set up your account. Make sure you set it as a default account. So all the desktop application will be referring to this account to send and receive the data. Okay, and also one important thing, in QGIS, you can go to plugins, manage and install plugins. Then go for settings and put the experimental plugin checkbox because it's still very fresh. And then search for Speckle, and then you can install and update it from here. When we go back to the server, speckle.xyz, we have an option to create a new stream. Stream can be interpreted as a project. So we can create a new project, add name to it, add the collaborators. For example, I know that Alan also has an account on speckle.xyz, so I can search for him here. And there are many Alans, so I choose the right one. But yeah, I'm gonna use the streams that we've created already, which is the QGIS Open Day stream. I have Alan here as a collaborator already. You can see it here, the list of collaborators. So we both have access, so we can read, receive the streams, and send the data to the streams. Now, the only thing you need to do is remember what's the name of your stream. Now we are going to go to the QGIS. And I will share a few things of how to prepare your data before sending, because most of the applications supported by Speckle are CAD applications or BIM applications, and the structure of the data is quite different in all of them. So the first thing to check, okay, this is the sample data that I downloaded from the open source. Is the elevation model from the UK. Here we have London City, and here we have a little piece of the London City. I clipped the raster file to the smaller one, and all the vector files I basically got from the OpenStreetMaps. So you can also use the Quick OSM plugin to download these things. So if you get the data like I did using OpenStreetMaps, a very important thing is to check the attribute table of your layers, because some of them might have dozens or hundreds of fields that will be attached to your model, and that will make it very heavy and not necessarily useful. So I have deleted all the fields from here that do not make sense for me, and I only left the ones that I will use later. You can use the editing mode to delete the attributes that you don't need. So the model will be sent much faster and received much faster. That's one thing. The second thing is when you are sending the data to Speckle, every geometry point will be received using the coordinate of every point of this geometry. And we need to make sure that if we want to communicate with the other CAD or BIM software, we need to make sure that the coordinates of the geometry are set in meters. So if we go on the bottom right here to the project coordinate reference system, we need to make sure that our global project coordinate reference system is set to the projected type and not the geographic type. If you are in doubt, you can check if your selected coordinate system using the meters or not. Also, if you're having troubles choosing the projected versus geographic coordinate system, you can have a full list here. But again, always check that the units that are used are in meters, and then you click apply.
I would say that, sorry, Katerina, I would say that most of these things are provisional, and we are happy to hear if anybody has ideas on how to improve it. So many of these things will change in further iterations to make it smoother to set up and easier to send and receive from here.
Yeah. So now it's made in a way that it would work, but not exactly in a very intuitive way that you might do it by yourself. So yeah, the workflow can be improved, and please share your suggestions. Another thing is that a different CAD and BIM application might have other limitations. For example, Revit will not receive geometry that is further away from the origin point than, let's say, 4 kilometers. And this piece of city is way more. So whatever we don't need, I would suggest in advance to clip it using processing toolbox, clip vector by extend, by canvas extend in this case, and then we would only leave the data that we would be actually using, and don't send all the unnecessary geometry that would make it again very heavy and not useful. The same goes with the raster. And also, if you want to make it more customized or more pretty, you can change the style of how your data is displayed. You can change, for example, from the gray colors to different type of gradients, and so on. You can also change the color of your buildings. And when you're ready with all that, the last thing to remember is that the coordinates, although they are still in meters, they are very far from the origin point. So you can read the coordinates in here. So when you receive it in the other software, they will be far away from the center. And if you want to coordinate easier the location of the model with the location of your CAD model, I would suggest, again, it's a bit cumbersome step. It might be better. So if you have any suggestions, please welcome. But for now, one way to do it is to create a new shapefile layer and call it, let's say, survey point, which will be, first of all, point type, geographic coordinate reference system, because it should be geographic coordinates. Okay, and then we can add the new feature to it. Yeah, toggle in editing and add point feature. We can put it randomly on the canvas for now. Save. Okay, it's not visible. And then what we can do is when we know exactly what is our base point location in Rhino or Revit, we can specify it better. So again, we can click edit, and we can use a vertex tool, right click on our feature, and we will see the coordinates of this feature, and then we can customize and if we know that when we open Rhino, the 000 point is exactly this, we can set it up here already and save. So now the data is ready to be sent. Once you install the plugin, you will see this little blue box, Speckle QGIS extension. And this project streams section will be empty the first time you open it, so you can click plus and add the streams that you want to use. You can search for it, then you click OK, and it will appear here. Once you select it, you can also choose into which branch you want to send it. I will not complicate things for now, so I just leave it as a default. And the layers I want to send and share with Alan is the clip extent, which is our buildings, the contours, the survey point, water, and raster clipped. Also, you can see here that for very large layers, raster or vector layers, you will see a little warning here because at this point, the QGIS will just hang and wait until everything is being sent. And if you have a huge raster layer which is covering half of the UK, it might take a while. So this is just for you to be ready. And you can send a message to this and click send. And this action will create a commit, like Alan explained before. Basically, you can create an analogy with a file on your computer being saved once as a commit. And this action, sorry?
It was just background noise. Please continue.
Okay, all right. So there was a little message that the stream was successfully sent, and we go back to the to here. We go to stream home, and we can see that this was created less than a minute ago. Objects from QGIS. Okay, this is a lot of objects at the same time.
All in the same plane.
Yeah, on the same plane. But you can see that all the data is here. The raster file is being turned into mesh. Okay, this is hurting my eyes. I will just send it to make it nicer. And you will see notification view commit here immediately popped up. Okay.
Yeah, we're currently improving our viewer too, so there's some kind of mishaps happening along the way.
Yeah, so yeah, and you can see, first of all, if you don't open your software, you can preview the data you received in the viewer and all the versions of this data as well. So if I go back, I can see that before that there are many versions of the file that I've been sending. So for some reason it had been sent multiple times. I can choose this version of the file, or I can choose this version of the file. And each of the commits or versions will have a specific ID that you can refer to when you want to receive it in the other software. So yeah, the data have been sent, and I will give the word to Alan.
Nice, thank you, Kat. Let me just share my point of view now. So we've got Rhino. Am I sharing? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. So let me just get back to where Katerina just left you, just for, so I can go back to speckle.xyz, which is our public free server. And in theory, I should have a notification here that Kate_Speckle has pushed some data to QGIS Open Day, and I have some previews here even. So I'm just gonna pop in and kind of like roam around and see, okay, what am I looking for? There's a couple of details that we haven't shared about inner stream organization in branches. So I'm just gonna keep it on the main branch, and these are like the changes that Kate was showing you a minute ago. So basically, I always usually want the latest data. No, I don't really care about whatever was pushed in the past. If you push something new, it's because it must be better or improved or fixed in some way. No, so usually you only care about the last commit, let's say, or the last snapshot that you've sent. So if we go back to our trusty Rhino, in Rhino we have like a slightly different UI that allows you to search a little bit more organically through your streams. And as you can see, I already have it set up with my accounts in my Speckle Manager, as Katerina mentioned. If anybody is curious on how to set this up, there are more detailed instructions in speckle.guide, because we have kind of rushed through the whole thing just to keep the demo simple. But you should have like a step-by-step walkthrough in our guides. So once you have that set, you just need to choose what stream is it that you want to receive the data from. In this case, I'm going to choose the one with Katerina, QGIS Open Day. And we can see here like a log of the changes, of the things that has been sent, who sent them. So I can choose between two options. As always, I can choose to send something to this stream if this is something I wish to do. But in this case, I want to receive data from this QGIS Open Day stream. And if you notice, there's like a small arrow that allows you to pop up a drop-up thing, or a pop-up window that allows you to select the branch, which in this case, we're not going to touch because we haven't talked about it. And as I was explaining, you can select any of the commits in your stream history, but usually you only care about what's the most updated version. So by default, it just allows you to select the latest one. And in the future, we will have some options to not only create geometry, but substitute existing geometry or update geometry if necessary, to allow for a more better experience. Right now, it will just, when you receive it, will just create new geometry on the specific layers. So let me just press that receive button. And basically, Speckle will start doing its thing. It will start communicating through the server, running through the conversion process. And eventually, if I put it in the correct mode, I will receive my QGIS geometry in Speckle, in Rhino through Speckle. So I have all of what were polygons in QGIS have now become meshes in Rhino. What were curves are curves in Rhino, as you would expect. So you could kind of like remodel the terrain or do whatever you need in this particular scenario. Ideally, you can also do something like send some data back to Katerina. So I'm actually going to do that. And for that, I am going to create a new branch on my Open QGIS Day stream. And I'm going to call this zoning, whatever. It doesn't matter. Test zoning. So this basically creates like a new box inside the box that we created before, where you can put like separate data that then Katerina can add to her QGIS project. So we can kind of like send each other things in a structured bidirectional way. So how does this work? Well, we just need to, let's just create some polylines, because this is still to be fully explored. So let's say all of these blocks here, we want to highlight this area in some way. And we also want to highlight this other area right here. And this other one right there. And we also want to highlight where we want to build a couple new bridges right there and right there. Obviously, this should be done a little bit more professionally, but let's keep it simple. So I'm going to create a new layer called bridges and another new layer called zones. And just put these things in their layer just to keep things nice and ordered. These are my zones. These are my bridges. And now I can send I could send everything, no? But to be more pragmatic, what's interesting is I could send the things that I have added, or the things that that are not part of whatever Katerina already has in her model, and send them back to her. So I can notice that I have this save stream that is in receive mode because I've received from this. I could also add a different stream. And in this case, I want to send these 5 objects that I've selected. So notice that that selection has already been added automatically to this branch that I've called zoning. So to a separate place. And I can go ahead and press send. And upon successful, I would, something has happened with the 3D viewer. It doesn't like to show me, it doesn't want to show me my curves, but they are somewhat there. But I guess Katerina will convince you finally once she receives it in QGIS, and hopefully it works.
All right. So one thing to mention, am I unmuted, right? Right. One thing to mention is that the version of the QGIS plugin that I'm using right now is in development. So the feature that I will show now, the receiving geometry from Rhino, is not available yet for the version of the plugin that you might download at the moment, but it will be out in 1 or 2 weeks. So that's also a sneak peek into the new functionality. And again, I have a stream here. From the branches, I can choose the one that Alan just created, zoning. If it's not showing up, you can delete the stream and add the stream again, and it will show up. And I will click receive.
Fingers crossed.
All right, let's try again. Oh, yeah, actually it was received. But it's hidden under the water, I suppose.
Yes, I can see some of the corners of the polygon.
Yeah.
Not
okay,
sure why it's complaining, but it is working.
Okay. So yeah. Thankfully, it did not break in a live demo. So the principle here, as it was, so there are 2 things that I have received. I received when I click first time the zoning branch. When I click second time, I received also the main branch. So main branch we don't need because I already have these layers. We will focus on the latest one. So upon receiving, QGIS will create a new group of layers, which is will have a custom name with the ID of your stream, the name of the branch, and the latest version. And under this group, it will create other layers, which would correspond to, let's say, Rhino layer structure. So Alan had different layers for zones and for bridges, which are preserved here. But also because QGIS can't put all different kind of objects into one layer, it also creates a separate subsection for polylines only or points only. So if Alan would also have some points sent in the zones layer, it would create an extra layer called zone/points and so on. So here I have them all received. And yeah, so that was an example of streaming the data between QGIS and Rhino, which is more or less straightforward. But there are other ways to work with it. If we have time, maybe we can have a quick look at other softwares.
I think we do have time to give it a go. Let me see if I can share my screen back again.
Yeah, we have about 20 minutes. I don't know if anyone in the room has any questions right now. If you do, maybe we can have a couple of questions and then head on to the next example. I think that's great.
Yeah,
sure. There aren't any right now from the live chat.
But I'll wait for everyone else.
Now, have at it, Charlie.
Yeah, shoot.
Oh, okay. I'll try not to take up too much time. My first question was, how much of this platform is open sourced?
All of it.
Like everything.
Everything.
the server, the connectors,
the only thing that is not open sourced is the Speckle Manager. And technically, you don't need it to run Speckle because all of the installers are open source and released and available. Like all of the actual code, the server, everything is open source. The only kind of like thing that for now we are keeping closed source is the actual Speckle Manager. And again, there are ways of working around that we also do support. So you're not really married to us strictly. You could just like grab what we have today and branch off and do your thing, and we wouldn't care. We would actually like to see it.
Yeah, I just want to say this is absolutely incredible from my perspective. I don't think there's like a whole lot of people who know how challenging CAD GIS interoperability is, and especially these programs that you're working with. I mean, like pretty much all of them, well, not all of them, but like a lot of them have these proprietary like data formats that are very difficult to work with, especially in something that's open source. Like this actually blows my mind that you were able to like do this legally at all. Like it's like incredible work. Like, I mean, it's been a challenge that a lot of people have like, and really smart people have worked on for a long time. And I mean, like putting it together with this entire framework is just absolutely incredible what you've achieved already. So kudos on that. One thing I did want to ask was like, is there, I mean, when you come, like I work in engineering, in GIS, but my brother's from like a civil engineering background, and it's mind-blowing to see the difference in technology and communities between those two ecosystems, because GIS has like the OGC, OSGeo has been around, like they're actually some of the most mature open source projects in existence. I mean, GrassGIS has been around since the 70s.
Yeah.
Whereas engineering is very much not like that, if I can put it that way. And like, is there a way? Is there a standard format that is coming out of this, like as an interoperability layer? So, like, you know, we have GeoPackage or GeoJSON. Is there something here where you said that you're trying to make something as lossless as possible, which will be kind of like your data store, and that's what this function is?
I mean, we do have like a data format. No, we have like an object model, but our object model is designed in a way, like the way we've solved this problem, which is not really 100% solved, like we are on the way of doing it, is that we're not really enforcing a specific structure of data. So you could use Speckle to send Excel spreadsheets to your Excel collaborators and not use 3D data at all. You could use Speckle to only send messages with no metadata, or you could use Speckle to send like Revit columns that contain geometry and metadata and a bunch of other proprietary stuff that nobody cares about, no? But is needed for it to work, no? So we're not, like our idea of kind of setting Speckle is kind of going against the grain of having like a standard format, and more on you have like a flexible framework where you can fit your differences to a certain degree, no? Until those differences are are conflicting enough to not be able to solve it. If you can convert a beam to a Revit beam and a beam to an ArchiCAD beam, well, you may not be able to do all of the properties, but most of them you will, no? Most of them are shared. So there's like there is part of that finding a common data framework, but we also allow for anybody to just give us the middle fingers, speaking clearly, and be like, I don't want your data structure. I just want your sending and receiving and your connectors and your thing, but I want to do my own conversions and my own object models, and I want to do IFC inside Speckle. Like, if you really want to do that, like, it's up to you. We do provide like the customizability and the like developer tools to do that. It's just not as straightforward as just following our lead, no.
So it's like like, to put it into perspective for developer types, it's kind of like the column store type database versus the old RDBMS, like where it's more flexible, less structured, but you try not to lose the data.
Yeah,
lots of annotations and then flexibility.
You could send anything you want to Speckle and try to receive it in Revit or in QGIS, and we will do our best to obey your wishes, no? But if you just send text, well, that is not gonna be received, no? It needs to have some QGIS kind of like friendliness to it, at least be some geometry. Like there would be some conditions, but that allows you to kind of create these abstract objects that will be QGIS friendly outside of QGIS, in your Python scripts, in your Jupyter notebooks, in wherever. Just as long as you know that like where you're going, you will be able to forget everything and just create some JSON objects with the fields that you want, send those in, and they will work, no? And again, as always, you can always customize the way they work to do your bidding. I see a question there. Where do you look for support besides the Speckle community? We do have a documentation page at speckle.guide, but that one is in constant improvement, and we are constantly improving Speckle too. So there is some misalignment always in the docs, sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller, that we always trying to fix. So if there's anything in speckle.guide that doesn't really work, shoot us up at speckle.community or find us on social media. We're happy to abide.
Also, there are more or less regular community stand-ups. I think once in a month.
Once a month. We tend to do a release once a month. Try at least. And also once a month, we do a community stand-up where we kind of go through our improvements and have community members show their cool Speckle-based stuff. So you're all welcome to join us also there.
Cool. Alrighty, thanks, Taras, for your question. If you do want to show us another example, we have about 10 minutes left. Or okay. I don't know if the rest of the room has some questions that they still have burning.
Well, I do have something to add to what Charlie was saying.
Go for it.
I think the biggest issue isn't the lack of a common data format. I think the issue is more of these companies refusing to use these standards. And in our particular GIS realm, one particular thing is, with GeoPackage, Esri sat on the GeoPackage standardizing committee but did not implement it till Arc Pro 2.6, I think last year.
Yeah, I can relate to that in engineering too. IFC has been ridiculously differently adopted throughout the same companies that created it, that agreed upon this standard. Each of them did their own thing, and then nothing works, and you have like 5 implementations of the same standard, and it's a mess everywhere.
Yeah, it's sad that these companies and industries don't want to work with each other. They purposefully choose not to use an interoperable data format.
Yeah, or not to make it as interoperable as people want, or like there's always like something delaying your adoption in some way or another. But yes, it is a pain point. Like in at least on my expertise in the architecture and engineering side, like Autodesk does everything they can to not give you access to things in their codes, to not allow you to do basic things with their APIs, to force you to go through ridiculous loopholes and stupid things just to not give you the data. No, it's like there's like intense of hours of development in just like slowing you down. That makes sense in their business model, I guess. No.
Alrighty.
Is there something in the platform at the moment for connecting native data, like through Speckle? So, for example, instead of converting something into from say a PostGIS database into the common like object and then streaming it through, like just having something like Speckle acts as a proxy essentially, so I can access it through your plugins and all the different apps, and then where it's supported. So, for example, Rhino might support other data formats natively. We can just bring it in like natively where available.
In theory, yes, it does require quite a bit. Like we're going to put some improvements in the following weeks that will allow for this better in C#. In other languages like Python and C++, I cannot say yet. But in theory, you could just like support your own formats. But what we also are planning on doing is adding blob storage support for what the people that are non-technical here is basically file storage like Google Drive. So you can drop files in and kind of link files to commits. It's still very work in progress to be determined how this will be used. But ideally, it will be initially used for supporting textures for rendering and other 3D visualization things. But it could also be used to just ship your QGIS layer file and link it and have another QGIS person just receive that file. Like you could have like other collaborative, like more proprietary ways of working while still benefiting from the Speckle ecosystem, the versioning, the real-time communication, etc. But it will lose some of its friendliness, no? Like since we store everything in a very open format that is basically JSON with our own object model. You can actually just consume it even if we don't support that language or don't support that specific platform, or you just do an API call to our server, you get back a JSON, you do what you need with it, no? While if you get back like a shapefile, you suddenly like, okay, what do I do with these objects, or how do I deal with them? And so we're always gonna kind of lean towards having an open representation of what you're trying to send, versus trying to kind of like comply with a more proprietary or file-specific thing. But we have nothing against it if others choose to piggyback on our successes and our infrastructure to do so, no?
Awesome. I see in the comments, Charis has sent another question. When do you expect this plugin to become a stable release? Is there a date?
I'm not sure we have a timeline because the most thing that we're missing right now is feedback on how this should work. What would you expect that isn't happening? what is happening that you do like, and what kind of things would you feel is missing for it to be stable. Because honestly, like, I'm not a QGIS person. I'm a developer and I'm a geek, and I will eat up every API that I need to make this work. But I'm not. I cannot put myself in like every QGIS user's perspective in the same way that I can put myself in a Revit user or a Grasshopper user's perspective. No, so we kind of need a little bit of help from the community to help Katerina be the tester here and give us like spend some time with us, like maybe organizing some calls, or maybe just like throwing us feedback on the Speckle community forum to kind of help us guide this to a better place, no? Because the bare bones of how it should work are there. The technology exists. We now just need to make those menus and those interactions with the user something that a QGIS user is expecting already in the way that the things work in your world, you know, which is ever so slightly different to ours.
Basically, the faster you find the bugs and report them, the faster it becomes more stable.
The faster it becomes stable, yeah. It's pretty much community driven, and most of our connectors are, no? So the more you complain, the faster we get it done. Mostly because we have a lot of connectors, and it's very easy to get us spread too thin, no? So if you make some noise, we will pay some attention and give you some love back for sure. Not sure if that's the answer that you were expecting, but I hope it would do.
So I've got another question real quick. So in terms of data interchange, so in the GIS world, again, we have, like, for instance, GeoPackage can support curved geometries where you have a curve that's represented as a start point, end point, and then a point on the circumference of it, so it's a nice smooth curve. Mm-hmm. And whereas you have something like a Shapefile does not support it, so that curve gets generalized into a series of line segments. So yes. Is that so in terms of like round robin support, if I go in QGIS and push geometry that has a curve in, and someone using another software that does not have curve support pulls it, gets line segments, does a change, pushes it back, and I go to pull that back again, do I lose the curve?
It would depend on the specific in QGIS right now. Let me see if I can get this correctly. If you send the curve and it still has its ID, I think the geometry will be left unchanged, and only the parameters would change if they have changed. So like the metadata inside it, because we do check if the curve already exists or not. But I can't tell you by memory if that is exactly how it works or not. No. Ideally, like for example, in other more advanced connectors that we have more mature, we do keep track of what has been created, what needs updating when you receive something again, so that doesn't happen. No, so you don't get like this duplicated geometries, or a geometry that suddenly gets lost or downgraded, or something weird happening along the way. But we found that usually sending things like back and forth requires some thinking independently of what you're doing, unless you're doing like QGIS to QGIS, or Grasshopper to Grasshopper, or Revit to Revit. No, like if you're kind of like jumping the boundary, you kind of need to think about what is supported where and how is that going to affect your future models. If you're planning on kind of like doing the laundry, the vicious cycle of like you send me, I send you, you send me, I send you, you need to kind of like have a well-structured thought of what am I receiving from you and what am I sending to you, so that you kind of like skip through these inconsistencies between platforms. So right now it's more of on the user side of things, sadly, to kind of design a workflow that will work for them, no? Given the restrictions of each platform. So if you're receiving something in a platform that dumps that curve down to a polyline, and you send that out, most likely that would be a polyline now. It would be like a new element that was created in a new application that has been created with a new ID. And there are our most advanced connectors do deal with this, but QGIS doesn't yet.
With compatibility.
Live streaming is on.
There you go.
Thank you. So to add on the previous answer, that would be the same situation with data formats that are not supported, like the raster files, for example. If we are sending raster files from QGIS in Grasshopper or in Rhino, you can receive it as a mesh, or you can receive it as a list of values versus the resolution of the raster. But you can't send raster in a raster format that you created in Rhino, because Rhino does not create rasters. So you can just keep it native there, or you can just send them updates from Rhino, but you can't send the same object when the software that you send it from is not able to support this object. Same with the curves.
Yeah, it's like a complicated world of interoperability. Nothing is as magical as you hoped, but we're hoping on making a little bit more magical than it currently is, at least.
One thing I feel that could help with this would be constraints on the streams or projects. So you can say, where you can export and import from and to, what the bounds or geographic extent of the project region is, what coordinate reference system you're using. Is that available currently or on the roadmap?
We are looking into ways of like standardizing data on the stream level to have like a way to have like your common project information, common project survey points, whatever thing is like global info for the entirety of the project, regardless of who are you or what are you doing with it. But we haven't yet figured this out. So again, if anybody's listening that has some ideas on how this could be done, or they would like it to be done, we're more than happy to hear about it and even discuss it further.
The main problem to standardize it is because different teams might use it completely differently. Like you may use all the files of your stream generated in QGIS, or you may use one location of one house in one commit, and from the other software you send another location. And if you set one location for the entire project, they won't match, and so on. So there is a very weird balance to find between standardizing things and letting users decide however they want to use it.
Yeah, it's super tricky. Once you decide one way, suddenly in another program it's like, yeah, but this program doesn't like, and you're back to square one again of trying to figure out what's the middle on all of these different interpretations. But yeah, story for another time, I guess.
We have a question that's coming in from the live chat. Let us go for another like 5-10 minutes and then probably close off the session. But I see Christian Diaz asks, can you tell us about the potential relation with Google Analytics?
I'm not sure what he means. Kat, do you know what he means? I mean, if he means like extracting data of Google Analytics or sending data of Speckle to Google Analytics, I guess both of them are possible. I mean, Google Analytics is just JavaScript based, so you could directly just send the data to Speckle as JSON objects with a little bit of editing around the way. And as for receiving notifications and events in Google Analytics from Speckle, I mean, we're doing something similar with our own notification analytics tracker that is included in the Speckle server that you can swap for whichever one you want if you have your own server. So I guess, and if I'm interpreting his question correctly, I guess both possible interpretations are doable in some way.
Alrighty. Christian, I hope that helps. I hope that answers your question.
Fingers crossed.
And yeah, that's all the questions from the live chat. So unless there's not another question in the room, or anything you would like to finalize with, or just conclude, then we will head on out, and happy weekend to everybody.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Katerina and Alan. This is fantastic. I think this is such
Thank you for having us.
Tool. I think Charlie is going to jump in and have a look at this. I can see the excitement. So it's absolutely fantastic. I think further on down the line with the development of this tool, perhaps we can catch up with you guys again in a short session, and you can show us all the awesome new things. I think a lot of the GIS community is really interested in a tool like this that does breach that gap. I know people are using QGIS and Blender and all these different programs, and I think this is the key to getting them all to work together flawlessly. So congrats on an awesome product, and I'm keen to see where it goes.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Catch us next month for the next QGIS Open Day. Cheers.
Bye.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.